Good Thursday evening. Welcome back in, everybody, to Let's Talk Live here on the LTL Media channel. I want to welcome in a live audience that's going to join us here this evening. I have to say, before we kick this off, this is probably, and I know I say this a lot, but this is probably one of the most important lives that I've done here on this channel, important live shows that I've done here on this channel. I know that we cover a plethora of things here on this channel, predominantly Karen Reed. We've gotten into the Trooper Enrique Delgado Garcia case. I started kind of my mystery in all of this, with the Idaho 4 case. Did almost a year of content on that. I will be bringing that back around as soon as we've had some updates on the DNA evidence. But when I see situations like this is where I get tired of turning on my camera and the audio, because we see the things that we saw in Robert Brooks's case, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Inmate Robert Brooks, beaten to death by 14 correctional officers, or 14 people that were in around that correctional facility that evening in Marcy Correctional Facility in upstate New York on December 9th. And it took almost 2 months to bring formal charges against these officers. And I have a lot to say about it tonight. And I wanted to bring in a friend, a real friend of the show here, to get his perspective on this. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to watch a lot of graphic content tonight. And I take no joy in showing any of this, but you all need to see what happened to this man, because he didn't deserve it. It should have never happened. And thankfully now, after 2 months, shame on you. Shame on you, Governor. 2 months, formal charges. But I don't want to wait too much longer here. We're going to bring in retired Mass State Police Todd McGhee to the show. Todd, how are you this evening?
Brian, good to see you, and thank you for another opportunity to be on LTL Media.
Todd, I can't, and I tell you all the time, when we speak and we have the opportunity to talk about these cases, I just said it in my opening. I'm tired of turning my camera on, my microphone on, and having to discuss another disgusting thing that has happened here in our country. The people that are, put into these places of law enforcement to protect us. Yes, and I have to say, Robert Brooks was there serving time, sentenced back in 2017 for admittedly stabbing his girlfriend, put into a correctional facility for 12 years, but he was doing his time. And here we are, and we get body cam footage of officers that never intended to turn on their cameras. And guess what? We got you, because 4 cameras in that situation turned on. Yes, there's no audio, but we can clearly see the visual, and we're going to show that this evening in the entirety of the video that's been released. But again, Todd, I'm getting tired of every single time I turn on this camera and microphone, we have to discuss things like this, but it needs to be shown and talked about. Todd, your initial thoughts on this case?
Brian, as we were talking offline prior to starting the show tonight, I was sharing with you that I have not seen this much government misconduct, gross negligence in all of my years of life. It's frequent, it's rampant. It's not just here in Massachusetts, it's happening all over the country. Thank goodness for your show and others that bring truth to power, that level set the audience, that bring a level of perspective and clarity to these different situations. But again, a travesty. And Mr. Brooks, yes, he was convicted of a crime, but he was doing his time. And his sentence was not a death sentence until these corrupt correctional officers did what they did. So justice has its way of working itself out, and here we are. So as we dive into the information, the videos that you have to share tonight, we'll just try and bring some analysis around it.
Yeah, I look at this, Todd, I look at the situation, and I go back to Rodney King, and I say to myself, that situation itself was disgusting. It sparked a riot across America. It caused damage to the fabric of the people that we are. I think this case is worse than Rodney King, and they're just equally as bad. And I hate to say this, Rodney King lived, but Robert Brooks did not. And we have it all on video. We're going to show that this evening. Robert Brooks was murdered at the hands of these corrupt correctional officers. I just can't. I can't. Let's just bring up this article. So we had an arraignment today. The indictments were unsealed, and we had some formal charges. I'm not going to read through the entire article. What we're going to do is I'm going to read some pieces here of the article. We're actually going to show the video of how we got to this, these arraignments and these indictments on these correctional officers. And then I have about a 30-minute press conference that we're going to show and kind of commentate through that. So from ABC News, 10 former prison guards charged in the death of the inmate of Robert Brooks. Goes on to say 10 former prison guards were indicted for the killing of Robert Brooks, a prisoner incarcerated at Marcy Correctional Facility in Marcy, New York, who was fatally beaten at a prison in December. December, Todd.
Yeah.
2 months.
Yeah.
2 months to bring formal charges against these officers.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
2 months. Where's the perp walk? Where's the arrest? They had this all on video. It took almost two. I think from what I remember, they released the video around Christmas of 2024. So they had almost 3 weeks to go through this. And Governor Hochul decides to release the information here 3 weeks after. And here we are now, almost 3 months. I'm sorry, almost 3 months until former charges are brought.
Right. We typically,
go ahead, Todd. I'm sorry.
We tend to examine the behavior of those who are guilty or that have been charged with these crimes. There needs to be another look at the administration. There needs to be another look at the superiors as to their failure to act. Those are violations in and of themselves.
Yeah, and I'm disgusted at actually what happened today, as we're going to read on here. All the formal charges that were brought forth, we had a lot of second-degree murder, we had manslaughter, we had gang attack, and all of these guys got bail. And I don't know what their money situation is, but I'm sure that some of them are going to be out walking around until their arraignment, which I believe is in March, on the 30th of March, which will be their next court hearing.
Right.
It's too much. Let me go back to the article here. So it goes in to say a grand jury indicted 6 officers, Nicholas Alazano, David Kingsley, Anthony Farina. Oh, and I want to watch the formal charges on that one, because I'm going to tell you, he's the one to me that was orchestrating a lot of this. And you're going to see he's the one that attacked Brooks the most. And that guy needs to go down hard. Christopher Walrath, Matthew Gallagher, and an unnamed defendant. I love this one too. On felony second-degree murder charges and first-degree manslaughter. The 9 defendants charged in the indictment appeared in court on Thursday and all pled not guilty to the charges brought against them. A 10th unnamed defendant was unable to surrender, Todd, on Thursday and is expected to be arraigned soon. I love the special treatment that this one got. Pretty disgusting. Pretty disgusting. He's not believed to be a flight risk. The officers are accused of acting with other correctional officers in conduct that, quote, created a grave risk to the death to another person and thereby caused the death of Robert Brooks, according to the criminal indictment. Brooks was transferred from Mohawk, which that is a facility about 12 miles from Marcy. And from what I understand, the reason that he was transferred was for his safety. I believe he was in another altercation at that facility with another inmate, and they transferred him down to Marcy on December 9th, and that is when he was formally attacked. And from my also understanding, Todd, before Brooks made it to Marcy, he was attacked in the van as well, traveling to that facility.
Yeah, so they had it in for him.
They had it in for him. All right, Todd, we're going to bring up this video. And this actually is from a reporter, because obviously there was no sound initially in this video, because what happened was, and just for the audience so they know, what happened was the officers never turned on their body cameras, but 4 of the officers' body cameras came on, must have got triggered somehow. And I don't
default.
know how that works. And maybe you can explain that, Todd. Go ahead.
My understanding, there's a default setting that something triggers it. That part I'm unsure of as well. But they had them off intentionally, but the default to the cameras, to the body cams, actually triggered on and captured everything.
Yeah, captured it, but we didn't get audio. And what this journalist did, and his name is JD Nicholas. He's up from upstate New York. He's been covering this case. He's going to kind of quarterback this for us. And obviously we can add our commentary as well. But I thought that we could play through this, and I just want to warn the audience in this. This is very graphic content. If this is too much for you, I understand. Just take this one off. But it needs to be discussed. It needs to be shown. The world needs to know, because no one is talking about this. I must say the only person I've found widely talking about this and actually picked the case up when it first happened is Duty Ron. I love his channel. If you want to get a little bit more informative in this situation, I would say go over and check out his channel as well. I was watching some of his videos and his lives on this as when I became aware of it, and he's done a phenomenal job. Retired New York police officer, has a great channel, adds lots of commentary to these cases. So, okay, let's bring this up. Again, it's very graphic video. I understand if people need to take this one off tonight. I completely understand that, but let's hear from JB Nichols, and he's going to kind of walk us through what's happening here.
Corrections officers in New York
Right back.
killed inmate Robert Brooks on December 9th, 2024. 4 of them unknowingly recorded the killing with their body-worn cameras. They didn't activate the cameras, but they were powered on, which enabled video to be recovered. The sound was not recoverable, so a close visual analysis is required to understand what's happening in the video that you see. That's Brooks right there.
I just want to pause this. One thing that I noticed in this room, Todd, when I look up at the ceiling and the corners, guess what's not up there? There's no cameras. There's no cameras in this room. So I'm wondering, and I'm pretty sure that these officers know there's no cameras in this room. And that's why they most likely took him there.
That's where you go.
Yep.
Sitting in green on the edge of an examination table in the prison's infirmary. Note the time in the upper right-hand corner of the video, which I've verified is accurate. It's 21:23 in military time. That's 9:23 p.m. In 20 minutes, Brooks will be dead.
I'm JB Nicholas, criminal justice reporter for the Freelance News. I've covered crime, courts, and prisons for the last 20 years. I'm going to back the tape up, and I'm going to walk you through the killing of Robert Brooks from the beginning.
I've used all 4 of the body camera videos to make this video. For clarity, I've marked in the upper left-hand corner the name of the guard whose camera recorded the video that's playing. This is video from Sergeant Glenn Trombley's body-worn video camera as he gets into a van with CO Anthony Farina. According to sworn testimony,
and I want everybody to remember that name, Anthony Farina, because you're going to see a lot of them in this video. And he deserves everything that he gets and more.
In a federal civil rights lawsuit exclusively revealed by the Freelance, Sergeant Trombley is the leader of the prison's beat-up squad, and Farina is a member of the squad. Every prison has a beat-up squad. Beat-up squads are a kind of quick reaction force that respond to fights and other emergencies. Trombley and Farina are about to arrive at one of the prison's exits and entrances called a sally port. That's where a squad of COs have Brooks handcuffed on the ground. Notice that when Trombley gets out of the van, he opens its side doors. That's because they usually place prisoners in the van to move them around inside the facility. This time, they will not use the van. We don't know how or why they all got here, but Brooks is handcuffed on the ground. Another sergeant, Michael Mashaw, is already there. So
And I'm going to pause this again really quick. And that's something that I want people to keep note of as well. Handcuffed and leg restraints through this entire time. He had no way to defend himself from these animals. Todd, at any point, if you need to stop and you want to comment, please just let me know.
Will do.
our COs, Robert Kessler, Nicholas Anzalone, Nicholas Kiefer, and David Kingsley. Anzalone and Kessler are going to stand Brooks up with his hands behind his back, bend him forward, and walk him away. That's Farina on the right. Behind them, right to left, are Sergeant Mashaw, Farina, Kingsley, and in the back, Kiefer.
And I'll say this, Farina, and if you Karen Reed supporters and watchers that know the case, and I'll say this, I know Todd won't, but I will, reminds me awful lot of Brian Albert. Got that attitude.
It's 9:21 and 36 seconds. 10 seconds later, CO Matthew Gallagher's camera captures Kessler, Anzalone, and Kingsley walking Brooks past the open doors of a van. That's Kessler to the right, Anzalone on the left, Brooks in the middle walking, bent over, and then Kingsley following them. This is important because the next time we see Brooks, he's going to be being carried by these three men into the infirmary. Less than a minute later, according to CO Michael Along's camera, Kessler, Anzalone, and Kingsley carry Brooks into the infirmary. He's unconscious, it appears, and no longer walking like he was when he was last seen. CO David Walters, turning the corner right there, follows them up the hallway into the infirmary and tells nurses Kyle Dashnow and Abedi Medovic don't go in the room to treat Brooks. He turns them away.
No cameras. There's no cameras in this area. Everywhere I look, there's no
Here
camera.
he is raising his right hand, holding it out, and gesturing toward Dashnow, freezing Dashnow in his tracks. Here it is again. Inside the room, Kingsley and Anzalone have Brooks pinned face down on the table, and it looks like Kingsley is trying to use the edge of the table to break Brooks' lower leg. 9:23:45 seconds, Sergeant Trombley arrives. There's Farina, Sergeant Mashaw. Brooks is conscious. There's Anzalone, Kessler, and Kingsley in the room. In walks CO Christopher Walrath, who has a lot to say to Brooks. We don't know what Walrath's role in this is, but it appears that whatever triggered this, Walrath was there when it started. Now, there goes Kiefer,
There's Farina.
Walrath behind him, and on his way out, Farina taps him. See that there? Farina taps Walworth to tell him something. Something like, hey, I got you. Walrath's out. Farina goes in, starts putting his gloves on, and Brooks has less than 18 minutes to live. It's 9:25. Farina is about to gag Brooks with a white rag. Anzalone has one of Brooks's boots in his hand, and it looks like he's hitting Brooks with it. Then Anzalone starts pounding away on Brooks. CO Gallagher is there watching. Here it is from the other side of the room with CO Matthew Gallagher's camera. There's Farina stuffing the rag in Brooks's mouth and then punching him repeatedly in the face. While Farina is punching Brooks in the face, Kingsley is pinning his neck to the table. Now he's lifting him up and choking him. lifting him up by the neck, choking him, and dropping him repeatedly back to the table. He does this 4 times. Back to the other side of the room and Sergeant Trombley's camera. There's Gallagher in the room. There goes Farina stomping on Brooks' genitals while they pin him to the table and punch him repeatedly. Gallagher has his hand on Brooks's throat. Here comes Walrath back. Walrath is grabbing Brooks's leg with Farina and twisting. Kiefer's back in the room too, on the far side of the room, standing there. There's Kessler. Michael Fisher, CO Michael Fisher in the doorway. This is from Michael Fisher's camera. When Farina was gagging Brooks, Brooks must have bit him because you see him, he took his glove off and he checked his finger and he grimaced. Now here's Kessler walking into the room. Kiefer is already in there, but Kiefer just got directed to leave the room by Sergeant Trombley. Let's watch that again. There's Trombley
Brian,
pointing at Kiefer across the room and then.
So again, we tend to focus in on where the abuse is happening. Everyone in that room, everyone in that hallway is complicit. This is what we saw in the Derek Chauvin case, where the other 2 officers were also charged. They didn't have their knee on George Floyd's neck.
Right.
However, they didn't stop Chauvin either. So and again, my law enforcement background is in policing, not corrections, but it applies. It's the same custodial care that when you have a prisoner, in this case, you have an inmate, that there's a duty to intervene. That's not new. It's in the books now. It's written in policies and procedures, which is new. However, if you have any sense of moral guidance in your career, you stop it.
Yeah, there's many officers in that room that had an opportunity to say, "Hey, that's enough."
Enough.
Or even a nurse runs in and says, "That's enough." They know what's going on out in that damn hallway.
Yep.
And no one did anything.
No one stepped
And
in.
do you think this comes down to fear, Todd? Are they fearing maybe someone in that room, or is this just the mentality of these animals? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it fear that you'll be the one, and I know this is like weird, you're the one that's going to be ostracized, or I'm afraid that if I tell, or is this just that mentality inside this gang? I call it a gang.
It is a gang. It is a gang. It's the culture, Brian. It's the culture. Marcy Correctional Facility has a reputation for being, I'm going to use a term of heavy-handed, but that for some reason doesn't give this justice for what it is. It was murder, but nonetheless, they had a reputation at Marcy.
Yeah, I've read some other articles about Marcy. I think Duty Ron might have had a former inmate that called in and actually spoke on a show about this beat up squad. I mean, it's been known about. So it's these officers again had this opportunity to jump in and say, "All right, we've had enough here. It's had enough. Let's stop." But we'll continue to play. And Todd, let me know at any point that you need to stop and comment, please.
Sweeping his hand to the door in the direction of the door, and Kiefer leaving. This shows that Trombley is indeed the head of the beat-up squad. Next, Walrath taps Sergeant Masho to back up so he can punch Brooks harder on the table while he's handcuffed. Let's watch that again. Now, outside in the hallway, Kessler and Shay Schaff and Michael Fisher talk. Kessler actually does most of the talking. He seems to be explaining something related to Brooks. It looks like he's describing a physical confrontation because you'll see in a second he backs up and then gestures to the wall. Here comes Walrath thanking Kessler for something, slapping him on the back. Kessler slapping him back, them laughing and joking. And now we're back in the room. Anzalone, Kingsley, Gallagher, and Farina are standing over Brooks, who's unconscious on the table. Kingsley has his hand on Brooks's throat. It's 9:27. They lift Brooks off the table. Anzalone on one side, Kingsley on the other. Sergeant Mashaw in the background looking on. There's blood on his face. His nose looks broken. He appears to be in and out of consciousness. Both Anzalone and Kingsley touch his neck and his head. Anzalone punches him in the side of the ribs. Kingsley keeps adjusting his grip to get a better grip on Brooks's neck. Trombley gestures, gives him an order to do something. Anzalone is going to put on gloves before he does it. They're going to take him and pin him against the wall in the far rear corner of the room. Against that window, there's a white window shade that's drawn down over it. Behind that shade is a window similar to the one on the left.
Todd, quick question. Farina, the guy in the front, the stripes on the sleeve, is that a higher ranking officer?
It's actually years of service. Usually those hash marks, I believe, are usually, I'm not sure in a correctional facility, correctional system, but usually they represent 3 years, two or 3 years, but usually 3 years.
Each bar is what you're saying.
Each bar. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
It's a thick plexi.
Again, I want everybody to notice there's not one camera, one security camera in this room. They knew where to take Mr. Brooks and do this.
And they think their cameras are all off.
With a metal.
What's that, Todd?
And they think their cameras are in the off position.
Yeah. Keep that in mind.
Mesh cover. And there's a ledge there. There's a windowsill. It's concrete. When they pick him up off the table, Brooks can't walk. So they carry him. He's a small guy compared to them. And they carry him over to the corner and they pin him up against the window ledge. While they're pinning Brooks to the window ledge, Sergeant Mashaw is not letting Nurse Medovic into the room. That's Nurse McMedovic on the right, Sergeant Mashaw on the left. It looks like Medovic wants to get into the room. He's got his gloves on. Mashaw's not having it.
5 years in New York.
Sends Medovic on his way. Okay. These are Brooks' last moments. There's Kessler, Anzalone, and Kingsley with Brooks pinned up against the wall. Now it's 9:31. The nurses are still outside the room. Kingsley, Anzalone, and Kessler are still in the corner with Brooks. Now Kessler seems to be applying pressure. Anzalone just lifted Brooks and threw him into the air twice. Brooks seems completely limp like a rag doll. It's 9:32. They finally let the nurses into the room. Brooks is on the table unconscious. Gallagher is stripping his pants off. Anzalone, Kingsley are still there. Now it's 9:35. Anzalone is leaving.
Just so the audience knows, he's passed. There's nothing. They're trying to find a pulse. There's nothing. He's dead.
Brooks. So is Medovic on the other side.
And they're laughing, Todd. Look at this in the background. These officers are laughing.
Mashaw and Trombley are joking and laughing in the background. 9:36. The nurse realizes it's hopeless.
Yeah, he's dead.
No pulse.
Nothing. He's dead. And now you can kind of see the panic in this
9:41.
guy with the
Madman is
round
still trying to
shirt.
find a pulse. Kingsley still has his hands on Brooks. Sergeant Trombley is going to enter the picture and go to the left, go to Brooks's head, and retrieve a small white object from what appears to be Brooks's face. Let's watch that again. It seems to me that could very well be a piece of the white rag that Farina used to gag Brooks.
And from what I understand, and I could be wrong on this, but I read some reports that the white rags that were shoved into Brooks's mouth were actually Clorox wipes.
Yeah.
That's what they did to him.
Yeah.
The nurse is pulling the portable defibrillator out of the wall. That's in that red package. He's going to hook the wires up to Brooks and see if it works, but it's not gonna. The Department of Corrections and Community Supervision said that Brooks died at Wynn Hospital in Utica on December 10th. That's more than 2 hours away from this moment, and it's only a 10-minute ambulance ride away.
There's no words, Brian. There's no words. Monsters. You know, there's in public safety, as I mentioned earlier, there is a duty to intervene. I've been in that situation and I intervened. And I said to the heavy-handed trooper I was working with, I'm not getting in front of internal affairs because you can't control your emotions. Don't ever do that again, or I'll return repayment to you. Those were my words.
So I'm very interested why hate crime charges were not brought on these gentlemen. I don't even say gentlemen. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I even used that word to describe these animals. I think it's just in my good nature to say that when I talk about people. But I'm just curious why there's no hate crime charges. I think that everybody in that room, and I don't give a shit about manslaughter. I think that everybody in that room should be charged with murder, second-degree murder. But some of them getting manslaughter. They could see 5 to 10 years, according to New York law. The guys that are facing second-degree murder, 25 years.
I'm wondering, Brian, if additional charges for civil rights violations, to your point about the hate crimes, I'm wondering from the perspective of civil rights.
Okay. So we had the arraignment today. We had the unsealed indictments. I'm not going to play all of them, but I'm going to play the presser afterwards. It's about 30 minutes. I figure we can commentate over that. But who I do want to play the indictment of, and seeing his first day in court, is Anthony Farina. Because when I watched that video, to me, he did the most egregious things and abuse and murderous actions towards Mr. Brooks. And I wanted to take pleasure in watching his indictment. So let's take a couple of minutes. We're going to watch him in court today, and then we'll play the prosecutor presser afterwards. Essentially describes the situation so we can get a little bit more of an idea of what happened. And it is difficult to hear because this is someone that recorded it with their phone over Zoom. This is Farina.
This is the matter of the people against Anthony Farina, indictment 25035, on for arraignment today. Now, I've received correspondence from a James Riotto that he's been retained in this matter. Are you?
Yes, Judge, I'm here, counsel.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Starzewski. All right, and that's your name, sir, Anthony Farina? How old are you, Mr. Farina?
49.
Mr. Farina, you are here today because the grand jury of Oneida County returned an indictment against you, so you have to be arraigned upon that. Mr. Fitzpatrick, you may arraign.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Farina, in indictment 2025-35, you have been indicted by an Oneida County grand jury charged with various crimes, the top count of which is murder in the second degree. And counsel, I'd ask if you waive a formal reading of the indictment.
Waive a reading and enter plea not guilty to all charges.
Not guilty plea is entered on the defendant's behalf.
This time, Judge, I'm going to hand counsel a copy of the indictment, again with the admonition that one name has been redacted because that individual is not in custody. I'm also providing our standard pretrial notices along with a disc concerning certain statements made by Mr. Farina, and ask if you acknowledge receipt. Acknowledge receipt, Your Honor.
All right. What I'm going to do, Mr. Starzewski, is adjourn the matter to March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference to give you some time to review the discovery materials. At that time, I can set up a motion schedule for you as well. Will that be you or Mr. Riotto at that time?
Probably Mr. Riotto.
Very good. All right. And with respect to the topic of bail, Mr. Fitzpatrick?
I would ask.
Yeah, I wanted to pause this because I remember reading about this. So the Attorney General, Letitia James, recused herself from the case as she has defended Farina for other cases where he beat other inmates. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, Todd.
You see those hashtags, those 5-year hashtags? A career of being just a monster.
You can't make it up. I mean, it's just wild.
Your Honor, consistent with what you said on Mr. Anselon.
Mr. Starzewski, your thoughts?
Yeah, I know who Sean is.
All
Sean
right, the court
from Long
considered the
Island,
statutory
Ottawa.
factors
Him.
and taking particular note of the fact that the defendant, if convicted of the top count, could face a sentence of as much as 25 years to life in state prison. Bail is set the following amounts. That is $100,000 cash, $250,000 insurance company bail bond, or $1 million partially secured surety bond with a minimum 10% deposit. Officer, can you
$100,000.
please pass this over? Mr. Starzewski, I'm going to have you provided with a Parker warning to review with your client. Thank you.
So $1 million, 10%, 100,000. Get what his other charges were. But it was probably quick math. I think it was like 250,000.
Mr. Farina, you do have a right to be present at all stages of the proceedings in your case, but if for some reason you posted bail and then did not come back to court as required, a warrant will be issued for your arrest. The posted bail.
As pauses were, I did my fuzzy math real quick. 250,000. It's only 25,000 to a bondsman. If the bondsman makes them give the entire 10%. So by 25,000, this guy can be out walking around on the street again.
Brian, just the fact that this went before the grand jury explains the length of time why it took 2 months to bring charges.
Yep. Okay, we'll go back here and finish this up.
It will be forfeited and lost. You may then face a new felony charge known as bail jumping, and the case may proceed in your absence, meaning you could be tried in your absence, and if convicted, sentenced in your absence as well. You understand that? I've received this document entitled Parker Warning, which outlines in writing the warnings that I just gave you. Confirm for me you signed this document after reviewing it here with your attorney today. Thank you. All right, bail is set. The amount so indicated. The defendant's to return to court on March 31st at 9:30 a.m. Is there anything further from either side?
No, Your Honor, thank you. Yes, Your Honor, I'd ask that defendant surrender his passport to counsel, and counsel advise me of when it has been surrendered. Suggest a week to do that. We'll make that happen.
Very good. If you please notify the court when that's complete.
I will.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All set. He's committed.
That's I call him Brian Albert. Why bail, Todd? Why bail for these guys? Is
So,
that is that union protect? I mean, can we be a little bit honest here? Is that I mean, what goes on when something like this happens? Is there a lot of backroom conversations? The union getting involved? Are they trying to protect? Are they making a deal? Like, how does that all work?
The union's done at this point. At this point, when for formal charges, and again, we have to remember the criminal justice system. An individual like this doesn't have any priors. You know, he, in the chat, it had mentioned that he was investigated before,
Right.
but probably no formal charges. So he's essentially before the court for the first time. That has weight that benefits him as a defendant.
You think these guys take a deal at the end of the day?
I don't see how they can't. Their careers are done, so there's nothing to preserve there.
Right.
So the only thing left to save is how soon you can get out of jail. And if you plead to a lesser charge, that's the deal on the table. I don't see how you go before the jury and try and prove your innocence, because
Right.
it's all on video.
It's on video. So let me tell you a little fun fact about Anthony Farina. Anthony Farina was the only one that resigned before he knew he was going to get fired. And why would someone want to resign before they knew they were going to get fired?
Yep. Hang on to that pension.
Son of a bitch. I'm sorry, Todd. I've dropped some language tonight, and I try to be very respectful when you're on the show, but
brother, it's appropriate. Again, this is heavy stuff, and we see the shenanigans that people try to play. Fortunately, in this case, it caught up to him.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because, again, I talked about this, if we want to take Karen Reed's case, Trooper Proctor, and the investigators, Tully, Buchanan, that were involved in all the egregious things, especially Proctor. That is not behavior that starts overnight. This has gone on for a long time. And the scary thing about it is it probably started with one or two officers. You probably had some good correctional officers that came in out of that group that wanted to do their job. And then they get around these guys and they go, hey, just give them a little love tap out now and then. It's what I do, or, hey, this is what we do. And then when you have one bad officer and they're around a group, you end up having 10, 20 bad officers, because that one tends to bleed into the other ones and so on. So,
I'd be interesting to hear what will come out during trial. I'm wondering what transpired at the previous correctional facility.
Yeah. And I think
prior to transport.
We may hear this in the prosecutor's presser. We're going to play this right now. I think they do explain it a little bit more of what happened, because that was very unclear. They just said, in the media reports they read, he was just transferred via inmate safety for his safety. But maybe we'll hear a little bit more here.
If he was being transported because there was a problem with another inmate, something else happened. That's not enough to warrant what happened.
I agree as well too. And again, I haven't, just so the audience knows, I have not been able to watch this full presser. I know Todd, I think I sent it over. I don't know what he's consumed over this, but we're going to go through it. It's about 30 minutes or so. And if we feel the need to commentate, we will. Just let me know, Todd, if you want me to stop.
Thanks.
Happening right now, officials are giving a press conference on the ongoing investigation into the deadly beating of Robert Brooks at the Marcy Correctional Facility on December 9th, 2024.
While Robert was being beaten. And finally, the third tier, those who were to a lesser extent aware of what was happening to Robert, or should have been aware of what was happening to him, and did nothing. The most important question that we faced, and which I think will be the centerpiece of the trial, whenever that is, will be, what did Robert die from? The latter question has been answered to my satisfaction and to the satisfaction of the grand jury by the Onondaga County Assistant Medical Examiner, Katya Merkulova. Robert died of massive beating to his body, both externally and internally. Several of his internal organs were bruised. His hyoid bone was fractured. His thyroid.
Interesting, and I want to add some context to that. The Sandra Birchmore case, that's how they came to the conclusion that she was murdered.
Yes.
Initially, when the reports were, it was a suicide, and we know Matthew Farwell orchestrated, choked her, broke her, I'm going to say this probably wrong, hyoid bone. I think that's the way. So he broke that, and orchestrated to make it look like Sandra Birchmore unalived herself. And it's very interesting take here that we're hearing that as well in Brooks's case. So broken high note bone as well.
That was caught on the film. It was caught on the
He
video.
also died as a
I'm sorry that, Todd?
The choking was caught on the video.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
as a result of repeated restrictions to his airways, causing severe brain damage.
Wow.
Finally, he died by choking on his own blood.
Ugh.
Our investigation revealed that in addition to the tape beating, which you probably have already seen, Robert was beaten on 2 prior occasions between 9/07 and the time of his death, within minutes of his arrival at Marcy. Our investigation further revealed that there was no provocation by Robert Brooks that would have precipitated any physical response whatsoever, never mind the physical response that was inflicted upon him. I think any sentient human being looking at
So he was, and let me get this right. They said he was beaten twice before he actually got to Marcy.
Correct. Which would make sense why he was being carried out into that Marcy facility.
the tapes, naturally comes to the conclusion that he must have said something. He must have spit at the officers. He must have resisted in some way. And the fact of the matter is, he did absolutely nothing.
Wow.
The first beating took place in what is referred to as the arsenal section of Marcy. It's the first enclosed structure that Robert entered after disembarking the bus from Mohawk. The second beating took place outside as Robert was being escorted
Into
to
the
the
van.
infirmary.
Oh,
And by
into
the
the
way, he was
infirmary.
being escorted to the infirmary because that is standard procedure when an inmate arrives at Marcy. And the third and final and fatal beating took place in the emergency room of the infirmary, which I said many of you have seen on tape. Indicted for murder in the second degree under a theory that they acted with depraved indifference to human life and caused Robert's death are former Marcy Corrections officers Anthony Farina, Nicholas Anzalone, David Kingsley, Christopher Walworth, and Matthew Gallagher. They face as potential punishment life in prison. Indicted for manslaughter in the second degree for recklessly causing Robert's death by essentially doing nothing are Michael Mashaw, Michael Fisher, and David Walters. They are facing a potential 15 years in state
Not
prison.
enough, Todd.
And finally,
Not enough.
Indicted
All
for
they have to do
tampering
is
with
stop it.
evidence is
Stop
Nicholas
it.
Gentile, a Class C felon.
What's that, Todd?
All they had to do was step in and stop
Yeah.
it.
It's not enough. I mean, there's not 15 years is not enough. To me, they all should go away. Life in prison.
There are states where that they would have the same charge as Farina. So they're actually fortunate it happened in New York and not the other states that have a heavier sentencing guidelines.
When you start changing our guidelines, Todd, it's not enough. It's just not enough.
Felony punishment of like 4 years in state prison. One additional defendant has been indicted for murder in the second degree, and he was unavailable to surrender himself. We do not believe he's a flight risk. He will be arraigned in the very, very near future. 3 former
Riddler.
Marcy Correction officers have reached plea agreements with the special prosecutor. I will not reveal their names nor their plea agreements until such time as they appear in court and enter their guilty pleas.
Oh, 3 of them.
At least 2 current or former Marcy employees and at least 1 current or former Mohawk employee are still under investigation, and the grand jury is still sitting and still able to hear evidence.
Wow.
I would advise them to seriously consider cooperating with the special prosecutor.
Real quick, I got a question for Todd. So Steph is asking Todd, can they get federal charges?
I would say yes. So going back to our earlier conversation, if they would bring charges such as civil rights violations, that would be on the federal level. So, again, that's probably now where you're going to see even more of them start to take pleas and hope that the district attorney from the DOJ's office doesn't bring charges, additional charges.
And they should. I mean, rightfully
Because
so.
they'll have to face both state and federal.
Yeah, rightfully so.
One doesn't make the other one go away.
I want to see these guys get the full gamut of everything. I mean, the full gamut. Stephanie says, I bet the plea is to testify against the others. Probably, most likely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You're trying to save their hide.
Yep. Yep. At this point, because you know you're caught, you're red-handed. We got you on tape.
Of course, is their choice. I want to thank very much the governor of the state of New York, Kathy Hochul, for her assistance, both logistically and financially. She has given me every resource I need to successfully conclude and bring to justice in this case. I want to thank Chris Marticello, who is Assistant Superintendent of Docks. He has answered every question. He has done every request we have made of him. The state police have been outstanding in their investigative work, as they have been throughout my 45-year career as a prosecutor. I want to thank my longtime friends and my local colleagues, the county executive, Tony Pacenti. He has been a great host to me and my staff. It's made us feel very, very welcome. And of course, I want to thank my colleague and my new friend, Todd Carville, for his assistance, the Oneida County District Attorney. I want to thank my team, who I just introduced. I want to
I'm just going to pause this. Steph, another question says, and those can't be run concurrently, correct? State and federal sentences. No. Yeah, those usually, you got to serve out your time on both.
give a special thanks to 23 members of this community who selflessly gave of their time and cautiously and very, very deliberatively went over this case and returned this indictment. I want to thank Robert Brooks Jr. I don't know him very well. This is the second time I have met him. He strikes me as an extraordinary young man, and he has been very, very gracious and supportive of me and my team. I want to also thank Jared Brooks, who was Robert's brother, Robert Brooks, the deceased's brother, and also Robert Ricks, who was Robert's father.
And their civil case was filed, I think, a month ago. So they have a heavily extended civil case in this matter. And then there's a full presser out there if anybody's looking for that. They came out and spoke for, I think, well over an hour. If you want to seek out that video, I'm sure you can just put in Robert Brooks family and it will bring you up to that presser. But this presser actually was from today after the formal charges. They may take questions here. I'm guessing they are. We'll get through this. Todd, again, at any point you want me to pause, just let me know.
I remind everyone that all of these defendants are cloaked with the presumption of innocence, and they will get their day in court at some time in the very, very near future. I want to turn the microphone over to a couple of people. I'm going to start right now with New York State Police Superintendent Stephen James. Super.
That's your wheelhouse, Todd.
Good afternoon. Thank you, District Attorney Fitzpatrick and your staff. As the DA mentioned, essentially his office, through the special counsel responsibilities, assumed special counsel investigation of this case. And they immediately went to work. They worked closely with the members of the state police to put this case together. And certainly, as he said, it's not done, but I thoroughly appreciate the work and the professionalism that they put forward. I want to acknowledge the assistance that we received that was provided by the Onondaga County Medical Examiner's Office as well. So the state police, they were notified of Robert Brooks's death in the early morning of December 10th. Our investigation started immediately, led by our Bureau of Criminal Investigation.
On the 10th, they were notified. Okay.
We committed a significant number of resources in this case, which included the expertise and the support of our Special Investigations Unit, our Forensics Investigation Unit, and our Forensics Video Multimedia Unit. We expended a significant amount of resources and hours conducting extensive interviews, collecting evidence, and analyzing hundreds of pieces of evidence. We investigated more than 400 separate leads that were emanated from this case, and we executed 16 search warrants to date. These numbers, they illustrate the extraordinary efforts that our members dedicated to this case and our efforts in collecting basically information to get to the truth and providing answers to the family. I commend all of the members for their hard work. And I just want to close by offering my sincere condolence to the family of Robert Brooks. Now, I've been a member of law enforcement for a good number of years, and although I've personally overseen and investigated numerous criminal
This is going to be the one.
cases, I have to acknowledge that this was a horrific incident to view. And it was extremely difficult to watch and to comprehend. So I will clearly say here to the Brooks family and the community, I appreciate not only your strength and your composure, and essentially for having the trust in us that we would do what we could within our power to ensure that justice is served.
I'm going to comment there. You know, you've just gone through, as a family, through this horrific incident. You've seen your family member get murdered on a video by correctional officers, and like the officer just said, you know, to trust us to go in and do the right thing in this case. I mean, it must have been really hard for that family. You know, who do we turn to now? Who do we trust? Authority, you know, what has happened with authority in this man's life has not been very trustworthy. And to put that out there, and I'm sure there was probably some very lengthy conversations with that family that we will get this right. Todd, any comment?
Yeah, Brian, just for your audience, it is not uncommon for a state police agency, as a senior agency within a given state, to conduct an investigation specifically when there is alleged misconduct, gross negligence from members of either a municipal agency, or in this particular case, a correctional. It's a state institution, but a correctional facility. So the state police would be commandeered to come in, do the actual what we would probably consider an internal affairs investigation, similar to that same process. The difference is that you have an outside agency that is independent to be able to remove any impropriety or any chance of, you know, someone looking the way or not doing a thorough investigation. So similar to like what we saw in the Karen Reed trial with the Fed stepping in, that next level of jurisdiction coming in to investigate something on a state level, a municipal level, very, very similar.
Yeah, and we can even maybe use this as an example as well. Trooper Enrique Delgado Garcia, we had the special investigator come in to break out all the entities that had connection with him in law enforcement and just have a completely independent investigation. And as we just did, you know what, about a week and a half ago, we had an update in that case. If anybody in this room is not familiar with it, but Special Investigator David Meyer, that's been investigating this case well over 160 days now, has just formulated some more additions to his team. We see on his team a lot of former FBI agents. Again, it just tells me a lot going on in that case, that there's just a lot more than just the surface level. If they're bringing in these specialty officers and you know, ex-FBI agents, there's something a lot more going on there than I tend to believe.
Yeah. I agree with that, Brian.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to the video here. And again, I want to thank Todd McGhee for coming on and going through this with me this evening. Again, this is a very important case. I know that I will continue to follow it here on this channel and see this through to its completion, and hopefully that Robert Brooks gets the justice that he deserves, and his family and his community gets the justice that they deserve in this. Because in my opinion, these guys, every single person that's involved in that room needs to go away for a very, very long time.
100%.
All right.
Collectively, thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. As you might imagine, Commissioner of Docks Dan Marcello is a little busy at the moment, and he has graciously allowed one of his deputies, Darren Miller, to speak to you today representing Docks. Darren?
Thank you, D.A. Fitzpatrick, and thank you everyone for being here. My name is Darren Miller, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner and Chief of the Office of Special Investigations for the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. As D.A. Fitzpatrick indicated, Commissioner Dan Marticello really wanted to be here today, but he's working hard to resolve an ongoing state of emergency across our state correctional facilities.
Yeah, they're striking right now. A lot of them
I also
are.
want to start off by offering my sincere condolences to the family of Robert Brooks. What happened to Robert Brooks should never have happened and is something that no family should have to endure. Today's indictments of the individuals responsible for the horrific killing of Robert Brooks marks an important step towards justice and healing. From the moment when we in OSI discovered the horrendous body-worn camera footage of these tragic events, Commissioner Marticello has said that the individuals responsible for this reprehensible act must be held accountable, and that this atrocious behavior cannot be normalized in our state's prison system. Today's indictments show that nobody in the department is above the law. I want to thank Governor Hochul, DA Fitzpatrick, State Police Superintendent James for their leadership, and express our gratitude to all of the investigators and prosecutors who have worked tirelessly on this case to date. Commissioner Marticello and the entire department's leadership team understands that this is a moment that requires swift and transparent prison reform, not simply words of comfort and empty promises. This work has already begun in docs, with an emphasis on a system-wide change and changes that will improve transparency and accountability. This includes expansion of the body-worn and fixed camera systems across all of our facilities, improved training, and the expansion of our investigative, analytical, and medical capabilities. We are also undergoing an independent cultural review, and we are working closely with Governor Hochul and our unions to address the ongoing staffing crisis. This is a starting point to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. But the changes we're proposing require a long-term and transparent commitment. We in DOC stand steadfast to promote a culture that provides safety for all in our care, from the incarcerated to staff, and all are treated with dignity and respect. Everyone should have the opportunity to improve their lives, pursue second chances, and seek better outcomes for themselves and their families. This opportunity was denied to Robert Brooks by the individuals indicted today. This is an opportunity now for meaningful change arising from this tragic event. The department will continue to work closely with DA Fitzpatrick and his team of prosecutors and the state police to ensure that there are criminal convictions and justice. The governor and the department are committed to transparent and accountable reforms. We all must be better than this. And today's indictments are one positive step in that direction. Thank you.
Darren, thank you. Also present here, I just want to identify for the reporters, Steve Schwartz, who is the attorney for Robert's family, Jared Ricks, who is Robert's brother, Mazel, I don't want to butcher your last name, Mazel Shortino, who's also Robert's son, and Robert Ricks, the father I spoke to earlier, I don't believe he's here, but speaking on behalf of his dad, is an outstanding young man that I'd like to ask to come up and say a few words to you, and that's Robert Brooks.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Brooks Jr. In December, I had to witness a brutal beating of murder by New York correctional officers. Earlier this month, I got news by the medical examiner. It was very painful, but unsurprised news that my father's death was ruled a homicide. After today, I witnessed over 10 New York correctional officers finally face crime charges. I will never get my father back. The men have robbed me of that opportunity. Still, indictments are an important step toward accountability. These men murdered my father. It was on video. The whole world got to see it. Waiting months for these charges have been extremely hard, but these men need to be prosecuted and convicted of the crimes they made. But even these convictions are not enough. Any person with authority who allows abuse and violence to go on for so long also needs to be held accountable. And I pledge, and my family pledges, to not stop until we see change to how our state prisons are operated, and that this no longer has to go on anymore, and no one has to face what me and my family have faced. My father's death will not be in vain. Justice for Robert Brooks. Thank you.
Well said, young man.
And
Yep, I agree.
several people have already said on behalf of every New Yorker, God bless you, and we're so very sorry about what happened to Dad. I'll take questions. I'm going to take every question.
What I wanted to
No
hear
reason
here.
To jump all over. Just tell me what news agency you're from and to whom you'd like to direct the question, sir.
To you, I'm with the Associated Press. Could you speak a little bit about the redacting? The person is not in custody. Are they actively seeking to avoid arrest, or can you?
No, it's one individual. I'll charitably say it was a misunderstanding by his attorney. My recollection is that he was clearly told to be here, but he had a commitment that I'm not going to go into, and he is due to surrender himself next week. Obviously, if he doesn't surrender himself, he'll be arrested and hopefully remanded without bail.
I don't care what flipping commitment you have, Todd. Your ass is going to get arrested with these guys and be in that courtroom. This special treatment. I don't care. I don't care if you're in whatever. You know what I mean? Your ass needs to be arrested along with the rest of them and brought to court.
100%. You don't get a break.
Robert Brooks didn't get a break, Todd.
Nope.
This guy doesn't deserve a break.
No.
Unreal.
He's a CO.
He's a corrections officer.
So he'll be coming in at a different time.
Yeah. I think, Jared, we don't have a date, correct? 24th. So we'll notify the press if you want to be present for his break.
He's got till the 24th to turn himself.
I'm sorry.
I did have another question. I mean, we heard
Robert.
here in regards to actually calling on higher powers to be also.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that? I don't know if you have anyone specific in mind, but it sounds like people who are in charge of the correction officers involved.
Honestly, I think it's very, very gracious on Robert to speak in those terms. You notice when he talked about justice. He wasn't.
Good point here. So someone just said in the chat, Todd, I'm not sure if you saw my comment before, but I bet on the money that guy is on vacation as it was a school break week. Possibly could be out of state. But you know what? You tell him your ass needs to get on a plane and get back here. You're being indicted. You have whatever, 24, 36 hours to get here.
Yeah, or you're going to be extradited. Also, best believe I'm going to add to the vacation angle, but he's cutting a deal.
Yeah.
Right now, he's cutting a deal.
Probably. Yep. With his lawyer on the phone and trying to work that out. And then we'll probably be one of the guys that flip as well. Todd, about 15 more minutes. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. I'll play this out and try to finish up here. I want to thank everybody again for being here. This is and I say this a lot. This is one of my most important lives. This is very, very important. This live show is very important. I need you all to smash the like button. We need to show YouTube this is a valuable video that everybody in the world needs to know about, and we need to get this news out there, and we need to see the completion of what happened to these animals that attacked and murdered Robert Brooks at Marcy Correctional Facility. And again, I will keep periodically updating on this case. I want to follow it out to completion and see what happens to these animals at the end of the day. All right, about 15 more minutes.
but he's entitled to retribution, as is any crime victim survivor. There are the obvious disturbing things about the tape, the beatings, but there's a lot more disturbing about the tape. And to me, the disturbing is the sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
The way that everyone was just going about their business.
That's the culture, Brian.
This was.
I'm sorry, Judge. This is the culture.
That's the culture.
Yeah.
He's speaking about the culture right now.
Yeah.
That sense of normalcy.
Acceptable behavior, and I think that's what Robert is talking about. And it has to be done. I mean, my job, I'm focused. I intend to convict these defendants. That's my focus. Everything I've heard from the governor is that she's very acutely aware that there's a systemic problem that needs to be addressed, and it's not just Marcy. You see what's going on around the state, and the Inspector General, by the way, is also in the process of conducting an investigation. So,
Can I ask one more thing?
sure.
There was a lot of noise inside both of the courtrooms and outside the courtroom.
Right.
Supporters of Robert Brooks saying that they were very concerned that bail was set too low.
Bail set too low.
This is New York. If you get bail on a case, you should, after you do a novena, just say thank you, Your Honor, for setting bail. Bail is not an issue in this case. Case is not going to be decided because someone's locked up for 8 months or 9 months until the case comes to trial. These guys aren't going in. So, Andrew?
I imagine.
I gotta disagree with that one. I don't agree with that. So these guys get to go out and live their life while they wait to go through the trial process. And we visibly have them literally murdering someone on tape. But you can go on with your life and hang out with your family and, get to do your normal, probably everyday things. I'm sure they're all going to get scrutinized when they go out in the public, as they should. But I don't get it. There's just a lot of things.
The videotape is very valuable evidence to the case, but to think that it may not have existed because those officers didn't intentionally record their devices, it was by happenstance. Wondering the value of the tape, but also the fact that they might have not been seen doing it because they didn't record it.
There's no question that one of the ironic features of this case, and the grand jury found, the officers were not aware that they were being taped. That's going to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. So it begs the question, if the Axon didn't have that feature of recording the previous 30 minutes and saving that into the cloud or whatever they call it, would we be here today? Robert, in my judgment, would have gone to see Attorney Schwartz, and Attorney Schwartz would have said, well, I don't know what happened. They say that he fell outside and hit his head and was under this influence of some kind of narcotic, and he must have caused these injuries to himself. And God only knows if we would have been able to, proceed with where we are today.
Can you speak to the logistics of getting the 10 people, or what is it, over 9 today in custody?
Well, that was done masterfully by the state police with the assistance of the Oneida County Sheriff's Office. Once the indictment was unsealed, the defendants prearranged locations with their attorneys surrendered. Those without attorneys surrendered anyway. And the state police at, I think, 4 or 5 various locations throughout upstate New York managed to get the report. Yes, in the back.
Hi, I'm with WKTV, the NBC affiliate here in Utica. I'm just wondering if plea negotiations would be entered into at any point?
A prosecutor has an ethical obligation to attempt to resolve a case before trial, and I'll certainly do that. But I'm not going to do that until I speak with Robert Brooks Jr. and the rest of his family. And if I do that, I certainly am not going to tell you, with all due respect, I don't discuss plea negotiations. It's not ethical to do that. Yes, straight ahead.
I'm with CNY Central's Channels 3 and 5 in Syracuse. Just wondering, when this was presented to members of the grand jury, what was their reaction if they sat and listened to the presentation and watched?
Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to discuss what happened in the grand jury. I can tell you without any revealing of confidential material, they were human beings. Their reaction, I suspect, is very similar to any person looking at that tape. It's difficult to watch. At the table here, sir. Yes.
Me?
Yep.
Hi, John Moss here from the Post here in Syracuse. If Brooks didn't say anything to them, he didn't spit on them, he didn't do anything, why did they do this? Why did this happen?
Well, that's the ultimate question. We're going to have cooperating witnesses that will testify about that, John. I'm going to save that for trial.
Yeah, one of them's on
There's no
vacation.
valid explanation.
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, one of them's on vacation. Corroborating.
Yeah. I'm wondering if any inmates witnessed this, like where it started, because you may see them step forward as being witnesses in this as well. I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure.
it started- Where did it originate?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, where did this originate? Obviously, we know he was transferred from Mohawk, so that's probably where the first incident was. But, you know, we found out he was beat 3 times, 2 times, once in the van, once in the courtyard before being brought in. And then obviously we saw the disgusting video that we just watched a couple of minutes ago. So I'm wondering, you know, now that the few that have turned, maybe one of them were in that van, and says, hey, you know, the jig is up. I'm going to probably go away for life. Let me just cut a deal now, and I'll turn and I'll just say, I know everything that happened in the van, or I know everything that happened in the courtyard. It's probably what you're going to see here. And then we might see some witnesses as far as inmates come forward when this all started, and they you know, share their portion of the story as well too. I'm pretty confident that all the blanks are going to get filled in here, because there were a lot of eyes in this.
Even if he did spit out, even if he did say something offensive about them and their family, there's no justification for what they did. And in fact, it just, in my judgment, it just supports the finding of the grand jury that this was a depraved situation and warranted a murder charge. Yes, sir, right here. Yep.
Is it clear why he was transferred from Mohawk in the first place?
He had been in an altercation at Mohawk on December the 7th and December the 9th. And Doc's officials made a judgment that for his safety, ironically enough, he should be transferred to Marcy. Neither of those assaults that took place on December the 7th or December the 9th, in the opinion of the medical examiner, contributed in any way to his death. Yes.
You were appointed to this case. Have you ever seen anything like this in your 30+ years of prosecuting?
Say again.
You were appointed on this. Have you seen anything like this in your 30+ years of prosecuting that's caught on video and just is brutal?
All right. Well, let's chance.
Okay.
I feel like I'm Trump. She looks wonderful, but I can't hear a word she's saying.
You were appointed to handle this case. Have you ever seen anything like this before that was caught on tape as brutal as it is?
Have I ever seen anything? Well, I think the superintendent took the words out of my mouth when he said he'd never seen anything like it. You know, my 2 assistants, Jared and Jed, they've watched the tape several dozen times. I've only seen it once, beginning to end, because every other time I started to watch it, I walked out of the room. So I guess the simple answer is no. All right, ladies. Yes.
Sorry, Dr. T. News Rochester.
All right.
Just to make sure we can answer the questions today, how many of them made
You know, I don't know the answer to that. I apologize. At least 6 of them made bond in court, and I don't know about the rest of them. You can check online. Right here at the end of the table, and then all the way back.
Hey, Prosecutor Patrick, JB Nicholas, Freelance News. You've been a law enforcement officer your entire life. You send people to prison every day. How are you feeling right now in the fact that you're putting, you know, COs behind bars at this point in your career?
Okay, a little premature to say I'm putting anybody behind bars, but
They're criminals. They got charged with a crime. Let the criminal justice system play out. They're going to be found guilty. They're criminals.
Yeah. We're just going to play a couple more questions here because we're coming tight on time. I know I've had Todd here, and obviously we can if you want to go back and finish this, I think it's like another 10 minutes here, but we'll play one more question. I want to hear this, finish this. We'll have one more question and our final thoughts on this. Again, I want to thank retired Mass State Police Todd McGhee for being on the show again and going through this very difficult video and giving us his commentary and his thoughts on this. And again, it'll be a case here that I continue to follow and see what happens when this all comes to completion. We'll just bounce back, maybe do another question or two, and then wrap up here.
You can ask me that, 8 months from now after the verdict, and I'll tell you. I'm not putting anybody behind bars. They put themselves behind bars if they're convicted.
How about this? Did you, as investigating law enforcement, did you face any special obstacles or any challenges that you don't usually face in investigations?
No. It's a fair question. Were there any obstacles, any pressure, any type of thing? I've got pressure put on me by one person in this case. And it's that young man sitting right there. When I met him a couple of weeks ago and I shook his hand and I said, Robert, I'm going to try to get justice for your father. And he looked at me and he said, I certainly hope so. I pray that you do your best. That's pressure. That's the only pressure that's been put on me in this case. And the obstacles are non-existent because of these men and women of the state police and the docs investigators that have assisted me. All the way in the back.
Hi, Jessica Tulin with News Shelter in Albany. I spoke with Rob Brooks' father and then also with a family friend. They both tell me while they're happy that the corrections officers and other guards are being charged in this case, they're upset and wonder why they got bail.
I don't know. You probably could, you're a reporter, you probably could have answered that for them. We live in the state of New York where it's very rare to see somebody charged and not have bail set. I thought that the bail set by Judge Bauer was eminently reasonable. I don't consider them flight risks. If this was 2019, I probably would have asked for remand because it's a murder charge. But if Judge Bauer had done that, I think he would have been immediately overturned by a higher court. So I understand their frustration, but be patient. Let's see what happens.
All right, we're gonna just pause out here. Kind of repetitive questions, but I want to let everybody know the gentleman that just spoke before the last question that was asked by the lady, that is J.D. Nicholas, and that was the video that the Brooks video with commentary. He was actually the reporter that did that. Todd, I think I've given all my emotions on this over the last couple of days that I've been talking about this and following it, and I'm so glad, and it just feels like it's a little too late, but I think you gave me a little bit more clarity saying this went to the grand jury. It takes a little bit of time. We know it's frustrating, but I don't like the whole bail process. I just think that a second-degree murder charge should weigh a little bit more in this incident where we have a video that a man literally is murdered on that video. I know it's frustrating. I know it's the laws of the state. They have these rights. I don't agree with it. But I'm just at a total loss for words watching this and hearing about it. Your final thought on this, Todd?
I was processing as we were going through this, and it dawned on me the similarities to the Tyree Nichols case in Memphis, where that unit, they called themselves the Scorpion Task Force, beat Tyree Nichols.
Yeah.
He was a motorist, pulled him out of the vehicle. He ran, and they punished him for running, and they took his life. And so, similar, just as we're talking and doing some analysis on this particular case with Robert Brooks, we see the very dark side of our policing at times, but all we can do is hope that justice is found, justice is delivered.
Yeah, I just when I first started learning about this case, all the cases that I covered just kind of flooded into me. Karen Reed, we've talked about Enrique Delgado Garcia, and that kind of I don't know, that jumped a little bit more forward to me, seeing the beating. And again, we don't know specifically what happened yet in Delgado Garcia's case, but I just automatically jumped to that and thought of, God, is this what they did to him? Was it a gang type of beating? We know there's a video. The family has been very secretive about what's on that video. It's an 8-minute video. It was from a security camera, from what I was told from the family. I just want to know what is on it. I actually reached out to the Delgado Garcia family today because Malcolm from NBC 10 reached out and said, hey, do you have a number I can contact them? We want to do a follow-up story. And the answer from the family was, we're not doing any interviews at this time. So that's very interesting to me. They may be coming to, again, I'm only speculating, maybe some type of conclusion or news that's going to be breaking this case soon, hopefully, because usually 10 things to get really quiet before they break. And I'm right in that situation, because again, it's been over 160 days in the trooper's case, and we want to get some resolve and justice in his case as well. Again, Todd, thank you so much for joining the show this evening. I appreciate you being here. Extremely tough situation in video to go through and walk through that. I appreciate your professionalism, your analysis, and I know that you and I will continue to talk about this and monitor this case. And if we get any major updates, if you ever want to come back and see what's happening here, I'd love to have you back on the show.
Brian, again, thank you. Always looking forward to an opportunity to come back and just take a deeper dive on these issues. As someone put earlier in your chat, these incidents need to be heightened. They need to be talked about. They need to be elevated to a point where the masses know about what's happening. So I'm happy to provide whatever I can based on my background, experience, and whatever I can bring to the table.
I agree. Todd, I'll let you go. I'm going to finish up here. Again, thank you so much, and we will talk soon, I'm sure.
Thank
you. Oh, I just dropped him really quick. I'm sorry, Todd. I dropped you too early. I apologize. Hit the wrong button. I'm going to go full screen. He's actually laughing in the he's chuckling a little bit in the back. I'm so sorry about that, Todd. But again, my final thought on this is I don't feel there's enough. I don't feel that the bail was set high enough. I understand there's laws and there's rights, but Robert Brooks didn't have that opportunity when these animal correctional officers beat him to death, on tape. And we got you this time. You thought you were smart not turning your camera on, but we got you. 4 cameras got you. Unfortunately, there's no audio. I'm probably pretty sure they brought in a lip reader to see what these guys were talking about. Hopefully that will come out in trial, if any of this goes to trial, but I don't see how it can. I'm sure these guys, through their attorneys, are going to make some type of deals. And if any of these guys want to challenge it and go to trial, we'll be there and we'll be covering it. So it only remains to be seen what's going to happen here. And again, I appreciate all of you that took the time to come in and watch this live tonight. It is very, very important. If you're watching this on replay, please give this video some activity, a thumbs up, a like, a comment. It helps get this video out into our algorithm here on YouTube. And again, this is a very important case and the world needs to know about it. So again, my friends, I want to thank you for your time. I will be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. where we will go through the most recent Karen Read hearing. Lots of controversy in that hearing, lots of what is going on. Maybe we can come, we'll walk through that. I'm stumbling here. We'll walk through that tomorrow night. We're going to have a late night on Friday. And then on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. From the Seeking Justice with Tom and Mike, Tom and Mike will be on my show here on that Sunday morning. And we will talk Karen Read, Trooper Enrique Delgado Garcia, Sandra Birchmore, and more. So my friends, thank you all so much. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I will talk to you all soon. I'm going to hit the outro here. Talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.